Prologue: the moment everything changed. They say the truth will set you free, but nobody warns you that first, it will shatter everything you thought you knew about yourself. My name is Daniel Parker, and for 35 years I believed I knew exactly who I was. A good husband, a successful architect, a man who had his life figured out. I had the perfect marriage, the perfect home, the perfect facade. But on one October night, in the darkness of my own bedroom, I discovered that the person I'd been pretending to be for decades was nothing more than a carefully constructed lie. This is the story of how a case of mistaken identity in the dark revealed a truth I'd been hiding from myself my entire life. A truth that would cost me everything I thought I wanted, only to give me everything I actually needed. The house was silent when I came home from work that Thursday evening. Sarah's car was in the driveway, so I knew she was home, probably upstairs in her office working on her latest interior design project. After 12 years of marriage, we'd settled into a comfortable routine. She worked late on her designs, I worked late at the firm, and we'd meet somewhere in the middle, two ships passing in the comfortable waters of domestic partnership. "Sarah," I called out, setting my briefcase by the door, "I'm home." No response. I checked my phone, a text from 2 hours ago, working on the Henderson project, "Might be in the zone, love you." I smiled. Sarah's zone meant she had her headphones on, completely absorbed in her work. It was one of the things I loved about her, her passion, her dedication. We'd met in college, her studying design, me studying architecture. Everyone said we were the perfect match, and for 12 years we'd been exactly that. Perfect. Or so I thought. I loosened my tie and headed to the kitchen, grabbing a beer from the fridge. The October evening was cooling down, the kind of weather that made you want to curl up with someone you loved. Maybe tonight we could actually spend some time together, watch a movie, reconnect. It felt like we'd been so busy lately, barely seeing each other except in passing. My phone buzzed, a text from my best friend and business partner, James. "James, asterisk drinks tomorrow night, you've been MIA lately. Beginning to think Sarah has you locked in the basement." I chuckled and typed back, "Tomorrow works, the usual place." "James, asterisk 7 p.m, don't be late, and don't give me that Sarah needs me excuse. Tell her you're having mandatory bro time." James had been my closest friend since freshman year of college. He was the opposite of me in every way: loud where I was quiet, impulsive where I was careful, openly chaotic where I was meticulously organized. He was also gay, which had been a non-issue for everyone in our friend group but had caused some tension with his conservative family. I'd always admired James's courage to live authentically. He'd come out at 19, despite knowing his family would struggle with it. While his parents eventually came around, I remembered the fear in his eyes that day he told me, the vulnerability of admitting who he really was. I'd hugged him, told him nothing changed between us, and meant it. What I didn't realize then, what I couldn't let myself realize, was the flicker of something else I'd felt, something I'd immediately buried so deep I convinced myself it had never existed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I finished my beer and headed upstairs, peeling off my work clothes as I went. The bedroom was dark, the curtains drawn against the evening light. I assumed Sarah was still in her office down the hall. I took a long shower, letting the hot water ease the tension from my shoulders. The Harrison project had been consuming me for weeks, a massive commercial complex that could make or break our firm's reputation. The stress was getting to me, manifesting in tension headaches and restless nights. When I stepped out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around my waist, the bedroom was still dark. I didn't bother turning on the light. Sarah hated bright lights in the evening, said they disrupted her creative flow. I could navigate our bedroom with my eyes closed anyway. I dropped the towel and slipped into bed, the cool sheets a relief against my skin. That's when I noticed the shape under the covers on Sarah's side of the bed. She must have finished working and come to bed without me hearing. The room was pitch black, the kind of darkness that makes you lose all sense of space and time. I could just make out her silhouette, her back to me, breathing softly. A wave of affection washed over me. When was the last time we'd actually gone to bed at the same time? When was the last time we'd been intimate, really intimate, not just the mechanical routine we'd fallen into? I moved closer, spooning against her back, my arm draping over her waist. She stirred slightly and I pressed a kiss to her shoulder, then her neck. She smelled different, not the jasmine perfume Sarah usually wore, but something more masculine like sandalwood and cedar. New perfume, I murmured against her skin. A soft sound, not quite a word, just an acknowledgement. My hand moved across her stomach, then higher. That's when I felt it, or rather didn't feel it. The curves I expected weren't there. The body against mine was different, harder, more angular. Masculine. I froze, my brain struggling to process what my body already knew. This wasn't Sarah. What the? I jerked back, reaching frantically for the bedside lamp. Light flooded the room, and I found myself staring into the shocked, guilty face of James. James, my best friend, in my bed, wearing nothing but boxer briefs. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity, both of us too stunned to speak. Daniel, James finally said, his voice rough, I can explain. What the fuck are you doing in my bed? I demanded, grabbing the sheet to cover myself. My heart was hammering, my mind reeling. Where's Sarah? Sarah's not here, James said, sitting up carefully like I was a wild animal that might bolt. She's at her mother's. She asked me to check on the house, said you've been working late and she didn't want you coming home to an empty house. So you got in my bed, I interrupted, my voice rising. What kind of explanation is that? I fell asleep. I was watching TV in your guest room, but it was cold and I thought I'd just lie down in here for a minute because it's warmer. I didn't think you'd be home before midnight. You've been getting home at 1, 2 in the morning lately. James ran his hand through his hair, clearly flustered. And then you got in bed and I didn't know how to tell you it was me without making it weird. Without making it weird, I was standing now, pulling on sweatpants with shaking hands. James, I just kissed you, I touched you, I thought you were my wife. I know, James said quietly. I'm sorry, I should have said something immediately, I just panicked. I paced the room, my mind spinning. This was insane. This was a nightmare. I'd just been intimate, however briefly, with my male best friend thinking he was my wife. The humiliation was crushing. But underneath the humiliation was something else, something that terrified me more than the embarrassment ever could. The moment before I'd realized it wasn't Sarah, before the panic set in, there had been something else, something that had felt right. No, I couldn't think about that. I wouldn't think about that. You need to leave, I said, not looking at him. Daniel. Now James, please just go. I heard him get up, heard the rustle of clothes as he dressed. When he spoke again, his voice was closer, gentler. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. This was just a stupid, awkward mistake. We can laugh about it eventually, right? I didn't answer, couldn't answer. I'll text you tomorrow, James said. We'll talk when you've had time to process. The bedroom door closed softly behind him. I heard his footsteps on the stairs, then the front door opening and closing. Silence. I sat on the edge of the bed, head in my hands, trying to make sense of what had just happened. It was a mistake, a bizarre, unfortunate mistake. James was right, eventually we'd laugh about it. It would become one of those stories we told at parties, cringing and laughing at the same time. Except I wasn't laughing. And the sick feeling in my stomach had nothing to do with embarrassment and everything to do with the question that had just surfaced from the depths of my consciousness, a question I'd been avoiding for 35 years. What if it hadn't felt wrong? What if, for those few seconds in the dark, it had felt more right than anything I'd felt with Sarah in years? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying those moments over and over, analyzing every sensation, every feeling, every traitorous thought that had crossed my mind. It didn't mean anything. It was dark. I thought it was Sarah. The body had simply felt different, that's all. The fact that some primitive part of my brain had responded before my conscious mind caught up didn't mean anything. Except it did, because I couldn't stop thinking about it. At 6 in the morning, I gave up on sleep and went for a run. The October air was crisp, the sun just beginning to rise over the suburban streets I'd jogged countless times. Everything looked the same houses, the same trees, the same carefully manicured lawns, but I felt fundamentally different, like I'd been replaced by someone else who just looked like Daniel Parker. When I got home, I showered again, scrubbing my skin until it was red as if I could wash away the confusion. My phone showed 3 missed calls and 5 texts from James. I couldn't deal with him right now. I needed to talk to Sarah first, needed the comfort of my wife, needed to ground myself in the reality of my life. I called her, she answered on the second ring, sounding groggy. Daniel, it's not even 7, is everything okay? Yeah, sorry, I missed you, when are you coming home? Tomorrow morning, Mom's having a hard time sorting through Dad's things. Sarah's father had passed away 6 months ago and her mother was still struggling. Are you sure you're okay? You sound weird. I'm fine, just been working too hard, I think. Maybe I'm coming down with something. Well, rest today, don't go into the office. I can't, the Harrison presentation is Monday. Daniel, you're going to work yourself to death. The presentation will be fine, you need to take care of yourself. We talked for a few more minutes, the comfortable banter of long marriage, and when we hung up, I felt marginally better. This was real. Sarah, our marriage, our life together, what happened last night was just an aberration, a weird moment that didn't mean anything. I got dressed and headed to the office, throwing myself into work with a desperate intensity. If I just didn't think about it, if I just focused on the familiar routines of my life, everything would go back to normal. But James wasn't making it easy to forget. By noon, I had 15 texts from him. James, asterisk, I'm really sorry about last night. James, asterisk, can we please talk? I feel terrible. James, asterisk, I know it was awkward, but we've been friends for too long to let this ruin things. James, asterisk, asterisk, Daniel, please, answer me. James, asterisk, I'm coming to your office. The last text made my stomach drop. I couldn't see James, not yet. Not until I'd figured out how to process what had happened, how to categorize it and file it away and move on with my life. I called him, he answered immediately. Daniel, thank God. Don't come to the office, I said, keeping my voice low. I'm busy with the Harrison project, I need some space, okay? Silence, then quietly, you're freaking out. I'm not freaking out, I'm just busy. You're freaking out because you felt something. James's voice was gentle, understanding in a way that made my chest tighten. Daniel, it's okay. There's nothing to be okay about. I cut him off, my voice harsher than I intended. Nothing happened, you fell asleep in the wrong bed, I got confused in the dark and that's it, it was a mistake. Was it? The question hung in the air between us. My hand gripped the phone so tight my knuckles went white. Don't, I said, don't do this. Do what? Acknowledge what we both felt. There was no we, James, I thought you were Sarah, that's it. Then why are you avoiding me? I'm not avoiding you, I'm working. Bullshit, we've been best friends for 17 years, I know when you're lying. He was right, of course. James had always been able to see through my carefully constructed walls. It was one of the reasons we'd stayed close for so long, he never let me hide. But I needed to hide now. I needed these walls more than I'd ever needed anything. I'll call you later, I said and hung up before he could respond. I spent the rest of the day buried in work, avoiding everyone, especially my own thoughts. But the harder I tried not to think about it, the more insistent the thoughts became. The way James's body had felt against mine. The instant of recognition before my brain caught up, that moment when something deep inside me had said asterisk yes before fear and denial kicked in. And worse, the realization that this wasn't the first time I'd had these thoughts. Memories I'd suppressed for years started surfacing. College, freshman year, before I'd met Sarah, the way I'd felt around my roommate David. How I'd convinced myself that everyone felt that way about their friends, that it was normal to think about them constantly, to feel your heart race when they walked into the room. The summer after sophomore year, working construction to pay for tuition. The crew foreman, Marcus, with his sun-bronzed skin and easy laugh. How I'd volunteered for every shift he was working, told myself it was because he was a good teacher that I wanted to learn from him. James himself, that first year we met, the flutter in my chest when he laughed at my jokes. The way I'd found excuses to be near him, to study together, to grab meals together. And then, when he came out, the surge of something I'd told myself was just happiness for my friend. But it wasn't just happiness, was it? I'd met Sarah 2 months after James came out. Beautiful, brilliant Sarah who made everything make sense. I'd fallen for her, I had genuinely loved her. She was everything I was supposed to want, and I did want her. But did I want her in the way I should? Or had I wanted the idea of her, the normalcy she represented, the shelter she provided from questions I didn't want to answer? By the time I left the office, it was after midnight. The building was empty, just me and the security guard, and I felt like I was the only person left in the world. I drove home through empty streets, and instead of feeling relief at pulling into my driveway, I felt a crushing weight of dread. This was my home, my life, my identity, and it suddenly felt like a prison. Sarah came home Saturday morning, and I threw myself into being the perfect husband. I made her favorite breakfast, blueberry pancakes with real maple syrup. I asked about her mother, listened attentively to her stories about sorting through her father's belongings. I suggested we spend the day together, just the two of us, maybe drive to the coast and walk on the beach. "Who are you and what have you done with my husband?" Sarah teased, but her eyes were warm. "Not that I'm complaining, I've missed you." "I've missed you too," I said, and meant it. Sarah was my anchor, my safe harbor. With her, I knew who I was supposed to be. We drove to the coast, walked hand in hand along the shore, and for a few hours I managed to push everything else away. This was real, this was my life, this was enough. But that evening, when we were lying in bed, Sarah curled against my side, I felt that familiar distance between us. The same distance I'd been feeling for months, maybe years, but had been too afraid to acknowledge. "Daniel," Sarah said softly, "can I ask you something?" My body tensed, of course. "Are you happy?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, are you happy with us, with your life?" She propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at me. "You've seemed distant lately, distracted, and I keep telling myself it's just work stress, but is it more than that?" This was my moment. I could tell her everything, the confusion, the questions, the night that had turned my world upside down. I could be honest, vulnerable, real. Instead, I did what I'd been doing my entire life. I retreated. "I'm fine," I said, pulling her closer. "Just stressed about the Harrison project. Once that's done, things will get back to normal." "Will they?" Sarah asked quietly. "Daniel, when was the last time we made love, really made love, not just going through the motions?" I couldn't remember. That's what scared me most. I genuinely couldn't remember the last time I'd felt truly present during intimacy with my wife. "I'm sorry," I said, because I was sorry for the distance, sorry for the pretending, sorry that I couldn't be the husband she deserved. "I'll do better." "That's not what I'm asking for," Sarah said, and there was frustration in her voice now. "I don't want you to do better. I want to know what's going on with you. Talk to me, Daniel, please." But I couldn't, because I didn't know how to put into words the earthquake happening inside me, the fundamental shift in how I understood myself. "There's nothing to talk about," I said. "I'm just tired." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, then she sighed and settled back against me. "Okay, if you say so." But I could feel the disappointment radiating from her, and it made me hate myself a little more. Monday came, and with it, the Harrison presentation. I should have been focused, prepared, confident. Instead, I was a mess of anxiety and confusion, barely holding it together. James was at the presentation. He had to be, as my business partner, and I felt his eyes on me throughout. We hadn't spoken since Friday's phone call, and the tension between us was palpable. The presentation went well despite my internal chaos. The clients loved our design, praising the innovative use of space and natural light. We closed the deal with handshakes and promises to start construction in the spring. It should have been a moment of triumph. Instead, all I felt was hollow. After the clients left, James cornered me in my office. "We need to talk," he said, closing the door behind him. "James, not now." "When then? You've been avoiding me for 4 days. We're business partners, Daniel, best friends. We can't just pretend nothing happened." "Nothing did happen," I insisted, but my voice lacked conviction. James sat in the chair across from my desk, his expression serious. "You know what I realized after Thursday night? That wasn't the first time." "The first time what?" "The first time I felt something between us, something more than friendship." He held up his hand as I started to protest. "Let me finish. I felt it for years, Daniel, since college, but you were so clearly straight, so clearly into Sarah that I convinced myself I was imagining it, that it was just wishful thinking from a lonely gay kid who fell for his straight best friend." "James." "But Thursday night," he continued, his voice gentle but firm, "in those few seconds before you realized it was me, I felt something from you, something real, and I think it terrified you." My heart was pounding. "You're wrong." Am I? Then look me in the eye and tell me you've never had these thoughts before. Tell me you've never wondered. Tell me you're 100% certain of your sexuality. I opened my mouth to do exactly that, to say the words that would end this conversation and restore the status quo. But I couldn't. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken truths. I'm married, I finally said. I love Sarah. I know you do, James said softly. And I'm not trying to ruin your marriage or complicate your life, but Daniel, you can love Sarah and still be questioning your sexuality. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. I'm not questioning anything. Aren't you? Because you look like someone who's drowning. The accuracy of that statement made my chest tighten. I was drowning, had been drowning for years, but I'd convinced myself that the water was air, that suffocating was normal, that everyone felt this way. What do you want from me? I asked, my voice breaking. I want you to be honest with yourself, if not with me. James leaned forward. Daniel, I came out at 19. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. My family didn't talk to me for a year. I lost friends. I had to rebuild my entire identity. And you know what the worst part was? Not the rejection from others. It was the years I'd spent rejecting myself, hating myself for something I couldn't change and didn't need to change. I'm not gay, I said, but the words sounded hollow even to my own ears. Maybe not, maybe you're bisexual, maybe you're something else entirely, but whatever you are, you deserve to figure it out, you deserve to live authentically. What about Sarah? What about our marriage? What about the life I've built? What about the life you've been hiding from? James countered. Daniel, I see you. I see the careful way you construct your world, the way you monitor every word, every action, every thought. You're exhausted from pretending to be what you think you should be, and it's killing you. Tears pricked at my eyes. I don't know how to be anyone else. Then maybe it's time to learn. That night, I sat in my car in the driveway for an hour, unable to go inside. Sarah's car was there, the lights were on, and I knew she was waiting for me to come home, probably with dinner ready and a smile on her face. I couldn't face her, couldn't look into her eyes, knowing that everything she thought about me, about us, might be built on a foundation of lies I'd been telling myself for so long I'd believed them. My phone rang. Sarah. Hey, I answered. I'm just sitting in the driveway. I know, I can see you from the window. Her voice was gentle. What's going on, Daniel? And please don't tell me it's work stress. This is something more. I closed my eyes. Can you come out here? A minute later, Sarah slid into the passenger seat, her face concerned. You're scaring me. I'm scared too, I admitted. Of what? Where did I even begin? How did I explain that the man she'd married might not actually exist, that I might not be the person either of us thought I was? I've been questioning things, I said carefully, about myself, about who I am. Sarah was quiet, waiting for me to continue. Something happened last Thursday when you were at your mom's. I took a deep breath. James was here, checking on the house like you asked. He fell asleep in our bed, and when I came home, the room was dark and I thought he was you. I saw the moment understanding dawned in Sarah's eyes. Oh. Nothing happened, I rushed to clarify. I mean, I started to, but then I realized and we stopped immediately. But Sarah, for those few seconds before I knew, I felt. I couldn't finish the sentence. You felt something, Sarah said quietly. I don't know what I felt. I'm confused. I'm questioning everything I thought I knew about myself. And I'm terrified because I love you, I love our life, but what if I've been lying to both of us this whole time? Tears were streaming down my face now. Sarah reached over and took my hand, and the gesture broke something inside me. How long have you been questioning? She asked. I don't know, maybe always, maybe never. I'm so confused I can't think straight. I laughed bitterly at the unintended pun. I just keep thinking about college, about certain feelings I had that I dismissed, about the way I've always felt slightly disconnected during intimacy, about the fact that I've never felt entirely comfortable in my own skin. Sarah was crying too now. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know, or I knew but I buried it so deep I convinced myself it wasn't real. Sarah, I love you. I married you because I wanted to marry you. But what if I also married you because you represented everything I was supposed to want? What if I've been using our marriage as proof that I'm normal, that I'm who I think I should be? That's not fair, Sarah said, her voice thick with tears, to either of us. I know, I'm so sorry, I never meant to hurt you. We sat in silence for a long time, both crying, both trying to process the implosion of our carefully constructed life. Finally, Sarah spoke. What do you want to do? I don't know. Do you want a divorce? The question should have been easy to answer, but it wasn't. I don't know, I said again. I don't know what I want. I don't know who I am. I just know that I can't keep pretending everything is fine when I'm drowning in questions I'm too afraid to answer. Sarah nodded slowly. Then maybe you need to find those answers. What does that mean? It means maybe we need some space, some time for you to figure out what you're feeling, who you are, without the pressure of maintaining a marriage at the same time. You want to separate, the words felt like knives. I want you to be happy, Sarah said, her voice breaking. And I want to be with someone who's sure they want to be with me. Daniel, I love you. I've loved you for 14 years, but I can't compete with your identity crisis. I can't be the thing you hide behind while you avoid facing yourself. She was right, I knew she was right, but it didn't make it hurt any less. I'm sorry, I whispered. Me too, Sarah said. She squeezed my hand once more, then got out of the car and went back inside. I sat there for another hour, watching the lights in the house go off one by one until I was sitting in darkness, alone with the truth I'd been running from my entire life. I wasn't sure I was straight. And that changed everything. I didn't go back inside that night. I drove to a hotel and checked in, texting Sarah to let her know I was safe. She responded with a simple asterisk okay and nothing else. The next morning, I called in sick to work, the first time in my career, and lay in the generic hotel room, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what to do next. My phone buzzed constantly, messages from James asking if I was okay. A text from Sarah saying she'd packed me a bag of clothes and left it on the porch if I wanted to pick it up. A voicemail from my mother asking why Sarah sounded upset when she'd called. I ignored all of them except Sarah's. I texted back, I'll come by tomorrow when you're at work. I'm sorry for everything. Me too was all she said. Over the next week, I existed in a strange limbo. I stayed at the hotel, went through the motions at work, avoided everyone I knew. I couldn't think about the future because I didn't know what I wanted it to look like. I couldn't think about the past because it was too painful to examine all the moments I'd ignored my own truth. James tried to reach out multiple times, but I wasn't ready to face him. He represented too many uncomfortable questions, too many feelings I didn't know how to process. On Friday, exactly 1 week after the night that changed everything, James showed up at my hotel room. The front desk told me your room number, he said when I opened the door. Before you get mad at them, I told them we were brothers and there was a family emergency. There's no emergency, I said, but I didn't close the door. Isn't there? James pushed past me into the room, taking in the unmade bed, the empty takeout containers, the general despair. Daniel, you can't hide forever. I'm not hiding, I'm processing. You're spiraling, James corrected, and I can't watch my best friend self-destruct without at least trying to help. You can't help with this. Why not? Because I'm gay, because I'm the reason you're questioning everything? James sat on the edge of the bed. Daniel, I'm sorry if what happened triggered something in you, but I'm not sorry that you're finally being honest with yourself. I'm not being honest with myself. I'm destroying my life based on one confusing moment and a lifetime of feelings I probably misinterpreted. Or, James said gently, you're finally acknowledging feelings you've been suppressing for decades. I paced the small room. What if I'm wrong? What if I blow up my entire life, hurt Sarah, come out as bisexual or gay or whatever, and then realize I was just confused, that it was all in my head? What if you're right? James countered. What if you spend the rest of your life pretending to be someone you're not because you're too scared to find out the truth? I can't lose everything. You won't lose everything, you'll lose the things that were built on pretending, and you'll gain the chance to build something real. I stopped packing and looked at him, really looked at him. James, who'd been my best friend for 17 years. James, who'd risked his family's love to live authentically. James, who I'd felt something for that night that I couldn't explain away. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. Nobody does, that's the point, you figure it out as you go. What if I hurt more people? What if I'm selfish and terrible for even questioning when I have a wife who loves me? You're not selfish for trying to understand yourself, James said firmly. You're human, and Sarah deserves someone who's sure about wanting her. Right now, you're not sure. That's not fair to either of you. He was right, I knew he was right, but knowing and accepting were two different things. Where do I even start? I asked. Start with honesty. Be honest about what you're feeling, what you're questioning. Stop trying to have all the answers before you're willing to ask the questions. I'm scared. I know, but you're braver than you think. James convinced me to see a therapist who specialized in sexuality and identity. Dr. Marcus Rivera had kind eyes and an office filled with plants and comfortable furniture that made you feel safe enough to fall apart. So, Dr. Rivera said in our first session, "Tell me what brings you here." I told him everything: the night with James, the questioning, the memories I'd suppressed, the marriage I was destroying, the identity crisis that had consumed my life. Dr. Rivera listened without judgment, occasionally asking questions but mostly just letting me talk. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "Daniel," he finally said, "do you know what compulsory heterosexuality is?" I shook my head. It's the idea that heterosexuality is assumed as the default, and that people who aren't straight often don't realize it because they've been conditioned to interpret their feelings through a heterosexual lens. They might feel pressure to be attracted to the opposite sex, might force themselves into relationships that feel right on paper but wrong in practice. The description hit too close to home. Many people, especially men who were raised with traditional masculine ideals, grow up never questioning their sexuality because they're not supposed to. They're supposed to like women, get married, have kids, and because they can function in heterosexual relationships, they assume that's what they are. "But I do love Sarah," I protested. "I believe you. Love and sexual attraction aren't always the same thing. You can genuinely love someone and still realize that the relationship isn't right for you, that you're not being authentic in it. So what am I supposed to do? Just blow up my entire life on the chance that I might be gay or bisexual?" "I'm not telling you to do anything," Dr. Rivera said calmly. "I'm suggesting that you explore these feelings honestly. Give yourself permission to question without immediately needing answers. Sexuality isn't always black and white. You might be gay, you might be bisexual, you might be somewhere on the spectrum you haven't even considered. Or you might realize you're straight and this was just a confusing moment. But you'll never know if you don't give yourself permission to explore." How do I explore without hurting more people? By being honest with them, Dr. Rivera said. With Sarah, with yourself, with the people in your life. Honesty might hurt in the short term, but deception and pretending hurts everyone in the long run. Over the next few weeks, I saw Dr. Rivera twice a week. We talked about my childhood, about the messages I'd received about masculinity and sexuality. We discussed my relationship with Sarah, my friendship with James, and the patterns I'd developed to avoid confronting uncomfortable truths about myself. "Tell me about the first time you remember having feelings for someone," Dr. Rivera said in one session. I thought back, really thought back. I was 14, there was this boy in my class, Tyler. He was popular, athletic, everything I wanted to be. I told myself I wanted to be him, but looking back, I think I wanted to be with him. What happened? Nothing, I pushed it down, started dating a girl, Emma, because that's what you were supposed to do. She was nice. We dated for 2 years, it was fine. Fine. Comfortable, easy, expected. I paused, not exciting, not passionate, just fine. And with Sarah, I was quiet for a long time. At first, it was exciting. She was beautiful, smart, passionate about her work, being with her felt right. But was that because I genuinely felt romantic attraction or because she checked all the boxes, because being with her meant I was normal? What do you think? I struggled to find the words. I think I loved her, I still love her, but I'm not sure I was ever in love with her the way I should have been. I was in love with what she represented, proof that I was who I thought I should be. Dr. Rivera nodded. And James, what does he represent? My heart rate picked up. Everything I'm afraid of, everything I've been hiding from, he represents the truth. Are you attracted to him? The question I'd been avoiding for weeks, maybe years, maybe forever. Yes, I whispered, God help me, yes. Saying it out loud felt like stepping off a cliff. After 6 weeks of therapy, I finally felt ready to have an honest conversation with Sarah. We met at a coffee shop, neutral territory, somewhere we could talk without the ghosts of our shared life haunting every corner. She looked tired when she arrived, but still beautiful. My heart ached at the sight of her, at the pain I'd caused, at the life we were losing. "Hi," she said, sitting across from me. "Hi, thanks for meeting me." We were polite, careful, like strangers who'd once known each other intimately. I hated it. "I've been seeing a therapist," I said, "working through everything." "That's good, I'm glad." "Sarah, I need to tell you something, and it's going to hurt, but you deserve the truth." She braced herself. "Okay. I think I'm bisexual or gay, I'm not entirely sure yet, but I know that I'm not straight and I've spent my entire adult life pretending I was." The words came out in a rush. "I loved you, I do love you, but I've been realizing that I was never fully present in our relationship. Part of me was always holding back, always pretending, always trying to be who I thought I should be instead of who I actually am." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, but she didn't look surprised. "I think I knew, maybe not consciously, but somewhere inside I knew, there was always this distance between us, this wall I could never quite break through." "I'm so sorry, you deserved someone who was all in, who never made you question if they really wanted you." "You're right, I did," she wiped her eyes. "But Daniel, I don't regret our marriage, we had 12 good years, we loved each other the best we knew how, it just wasn't enough, and that's not entirely your fault." "How can you say that? I lied to you, to myself, I wasted your time." "You didn't waste my time," Sarah interrupted firmly. "We grew together, we built a life together. Just because its ending doesn't mean it was meaningless. But you're right that we both deserve more. I deserve someone who's certain about wanting me, and you deserve to be with someone you're actually attracted to. I never meant to hurt you." "I know, but you did, and we both have to live with that." She reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm grieving the life I thought we'd have, but I also want you to be happy, to be yourself, you deserve that." "So do you." We sat in silence for a moment, mourning the death of our marriage. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we get divorced, we sell the house, we figure out how to be in each other's lives if we can be." Sarah squeezed my hand once more, then let go. "And you figure out who you really are without me or anyone else telling you who you should be." "I don't know how to do that." "Neither did I when my dad died and I had to figure out who I was without him, but you do it one day at a time. You try, you fail, you try again, eventually you find yourself." We talked for another hour, working through logistics and emotions, crying and laughing and remembering the good times. When we finally said goodbye, it felt like closure and heartbreak all at once. I walked to my car and sat there for a long time, feeling the weight of what I'd just done. I'd ended my marriage, admitted my truth, started down a path that terrified me. But I'd also, for the first time in my life, been completely honest. And that felt like freedom. Over the next few months, I focused on myself. I moved into a small apartment downtown. I continued therapy. I came out to my parents, a conversation that was as difficult as I'd expected, with my father struggling to understand and my mother crying but ultimately saying she loved me no matter what. I came out at work, which was surprisingly easier. Most of my colleagues were supportive, and the few who weren't kept their opinions to themselves. James was ecstatic and proud, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. "I knew you'd get here eventually," he said, tears in his eyes. "Did you?" "Hoped maybe, but I'm so proud of you for being brave enough to be honest." But the hardest part wasn't coming out. It was figuring out who I was now that I'd shed the identity I'd been performing for decades. Dr. Rivera suggested I explore my sexuality in healthy ways, not rushing into anything, but allowing myself to be curious, to notice attraction, to acknowledge feelings I'd always suppressed. "Go to a gay bar," he suggested, "not to hook up, just to exist in that space, see how it feels." So one Friday night, I went to a popular gay bar in the city. I stood outside for 10 minutes, terrified, before finally walking in. The bar was crowded, music pulsing, men everywhere. And for the first time in my life, I let myself look, really look, let myself notice the attractive men without immediately shutting down the observation. Let myself feel the flutter of interest without judgment. It was overwhelming and exhilarating and terrifying all at once. "First time," a voice asked beside me. I turned to find a man about my age, with kind eyes and an understanding smile. Is it that obvious? You have the look like a deer in headlights. He extended his hand. I'm Marcus. Daniel. We shook hands and I felt a small thrill at the contact, something I allowed myself to feel without immediately pushing it away. Can I buy you a drink? Marcus asked. No pressure, just seems like you could use a friend right now. I'd like that. We talked for hours. Marcus had come out in his 20s, had been through his own journey of self-discovery. He was a high school teacher, loved hiking, and had a cat named Sir Fluffington. So what's your story? He asked eventually. I told him the abbreviated version, the marriage, the awakening, the journey I was on. That takes courage, Marcus said. Coming out at 35 after building a whole life around being straight, that's not easy. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done. But you're doing it, that's what matters, Marcus smiled. Can I give you some advice? Please. Don't rush, don't feel like you have to figure everything out immediately or prove your sexuality by dating or sleeping with men right away. Take your time, explore at your own pace. Your journey is yours, there's no timeline, no checklist. Thank you, I said, genuinely grateful. I needed to hear that. We exchanged numbers and Marcus became one of my first friends in the queer community. Not a romantic interest, just a friend who understood what I was going through. Over the following weeks, I met more people, went to more bars, attended a local LGBTQ+ community center's discussion group. Slowly, tentatively, I built a new identity that felt more authentic than anything I'd ever known. But through it all, there was one person I couldn't stop thinking about. James. Tell me about James, Dr. Rivera said in one of our sessions. I'd been avoiding talking about him specifically, even though he was at the center of everything. He's my best friend, has been for 17 years. And I think I've been in love with him for most of that time, without letting myself acknowledge it. There it was, the truth I'd been dancing around for months. What makes you think that? Everything, the way I've always felt around him, the way I volunteered to be his business partner, the way I was secretly relieved when his relationships didn't work out, the way that night felt when I touched him even before I knew it was him, the way I can't stop thinking about him now. Have you told him this? No, he's been amazing through all of this, supportive, patient, giving me space when I need it. But I can't tell him how I feel, it would be selfish. I just blew up my marriage, I'm still figuring out who I am, I can't drag him into my mess. What if he wants to be dragged into your mess? I shook my head. James deserves someone who has their life together, someone who's not a disaster. Daniel, do you hear yourself? You're making decisions for him, deciding what he does or doesn't deserve without giving him the chance to choose for himself. I'm protecting him. Or protecting yourself from the possibility of rejection. Dr. Rivera's words hit hard. He was right, I was scared. Scared that if I told James how I felt and he didn't feel the same way, I'd lose my best friend on top of everything else I'd lost. But I was also scared that he did feel the same way, and that I'd have to risk my heart on something real instead of hiding behind excuses. What do you think I should do? I asked. I think you should be honest with him, not because you're expecting anything, but because honesty is part of your growth. Tell him how you feel, let him decide what to do with that information. And if he doesn't feel the same way, then at least you'll know, and you'll have been authentic, which is what this whole journey is about. I asked James to meet me at our favorite coffee shop, the place where we'd spent countless hours over the years solving the world's problems and designing buildings on napkins. He arrived with his usual easy smile, but I could see the questions in his eyes. We'd been friendly over the past few months, but careful, both of us aware of the undercurrents neither of us addressed. So, James said, settling into his chair with coffee in hand, "What's this about? You sounded serious on the phone." I need to tell you something, and it's probably going to make things weird, but I can't keep it in anymore. James's expression grew serious. Okay. I took a deep breath. That night, when I got into bed and thought you were Sarah, you said you felt something between us. I remembered. You were right, there was something, and I've been realizing over these past few months that there's always been something. I think I've been in love with you since we met, James. I just couldn't let myself see it. James stared at me, his coffee cup frozen halfway to his mouth. I know the timing is terrible, I rushed on. I know I'm a mess. I know I just ended my marriage and I'm still figuring out who I am, but I couldn't not tell you. You've been the most important person in my life for 17 years, and pretending that's only friendship would be lying to you and to myself, and I'm done lying. James carefully set down his coffee cup. Daniel, you don't have to say anything. I'm not expecting anything. I just needed you to know, and if this makes things weird, I understand, but I couldn't keep pretending. Daniel, shut up, James said, but he was smiling. You really are terrible at reading people, aren't you? What? I've been in love with you since sophomore year of college. Why do you think I suggested we go into business together? Why do you think I've been single most of the time we've known each other? Every guy I dated I compared to you, and they all fell short. My heart was pounding, but you never said anything. Because you were straight, or I thought you were, and then you got married and I had to accept that my feelings were one-sided, that you were my best friend and that would have to be enough. James reached across the table and took my hand. But that night when I felt you respond before you realized it was me, I allowed myself to hope, just for a moment. Why didn't you say something after? Because you needed to figure yourself out first. I couldn't be the reason you came out or the reason you left Sarah. You needed to do that for yourself. But Daniel, I've been waiting, hopping, praying that eventually you'd get here. Tears were streaming down my face. I'm sorry it took me so long. Hey, 17 years isn't that long, James joked, but his voice was thick with emotion. I'm just glad you finally figured it out. I'm still a mess, I warned. I'm still learning who I am. I don't know how to be in a relationship with a man. I'm going to screw things up. Good thing I'm patient. James squeezed my hand. Daniel, we don't have to rush. We can take this as slow as you need, but I'm not going anywhere. I've waited 17 years. I can wait as long as you need. What if I'm not ready? Then we wait until you are. What if I'm never ready? Then we're best friends who love each other. That's still pretty good, James smiled. But I think you're more ready than you realize. He stood up and came around the table, pulling me up into a hug. And standing there, wrapped in his arms, I felt something I'd never felt before, completely safe, completely seen, completely myself. Can I kiss you? James asked softly, for real this time with the lights on. I nodded, not trusting my voice. James cupped my face in his hands and kissed me gently. It was nothing like that night in the dark. It was better. It was honest. It was real. It was everything I'd been too afraid to want. When we pulled apart, we were both crying and laughing. So James said, what happens now? Now we take it one day at a time, I said. No pressure, no expectations, just honest. I can do honest. Me too, finally. James insisted on taking me on a proper first date. We've known each other for 17 years, he said. We've had 1,000 meals together, but we've never been on a date. I want to do this right. So the following Saturday, he picked me up at my apartment wearing a suit that made my heart skip, carrying flowers like we were teenagers. Are those for me? I asked, touched. Unless you have another date hiding in your closet, James teased. Yes, they're for you. I've been wanting to bring you flowers for approximately 17 years. He took me to a small Italian restaurant I'd never been to, with dim lighting and candles on every table. It was romantic and intimate, and everything a first date should be. I'm nervous, I admitted once we were seated. So am I. You're never nervous. I'm nervous about this, James said. About finally getting what I've wanted for so long and being terrified I'll mess it up. Join the club. We laughed and the tension broke. And then we talked, really talked in a way we'd never allowed ourselves to before, about the feelings we'd both been hiding, about the moments over the years when we'd almost crossed the line, about the future we could build together if we were brave enough to try. Remember that trip to San Francisco? James asked, for the architecture conference. Of course, we shared that tiny hotel room because the conference rate was sold out. I barely slept that whole trip. You were in the bed next to mine, and all I could think about was how much I wanted to reach across the space between us. I remember lying awake too, I admitted, telling myself I was just being weird, that straight guys didn't have these thoughts about their friends. Except you weren't straight. Except I wasn't straight, I agreed. I just couldn't admit it yet. After dinner, we walked through the city hand in hand. It felt surreal doing in public what I'd never allowed myself to even imagine. But it also felt right, like pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. Can I tell you something? I said as we walked. Anything. I'm terrified that I'm going to wake up and realize this is a dream, that I'm going to lose you. James stopped walking and turned to face me. Daniel, look at me, I'm here, I'm real, and I'm not going anywhere, you're not going to lose me. How can you be so sure? Because I've loved you for 17 years, through your entire marriage, through every moment when I knew I couldn't have you. If I haven't stopped loving you yet, I'm not going to start now. I kissed him right there on the street corner, not caring who saw. It was my first public display of affection with a man, and it felt like another door opening, another step into authenticity. Take me home, I whispered against his lips. Daniel, we don't have to. I know, but I want to, I'm ready. James was gentle, patient, checking in constantly to make sure I was okay. We took it slow, mapping each other's bodies with a mix of nervousness and wonder. You can tell me to stop at any time, James said. I know, but I don't want you to stop. Being intimate with James was nothing like it had been with Sarah. It wasn't that Sarah had done anything wrong, but this felt fundamentally different, present, real, like every cell in my body was saying yes instead of just going through the motions. Afterward, we lay tangled together, and I felt more at peace than I could ever remember feeling. You okay? James asked, running his fingers through my hair. More than okay, that was, I struggled to find words. That was what it's supposed to feel like, wasn't it? What do you mean? Being with someone, really wanting them, being present, feeling like your body and mind are in agreement for once. I turned to look at him. I never felt that with Sarah. I thought there was something wrong with me. Turns out I was just with the wrong gender. Not to make this about me, James said carefully, but how was it compared to what you expected? Honestly, better, different, obviously, but in all the right ways. I felt like I could finally just be myself. I didn't have to perform or pretend or worry about whether I was feeling the right things. James smiled and kissed my forehead. Good, because I plan on doing that a lot more. I hope so. We fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and for the first time in months, I slept through the night without nightmares or anxiety. Coming out as bisexual had been one thing. Actually dating James, my business partner, my best friend, was another. We had to figure out how to navigate our relationship both personally and professionally. We should tell people at work, I said one morning over coffee in his apartment. Get ahead of it. Are you ready for that? I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but hiding feels wrong. We spent 17 years hiding how we felt. I don't want to do that anymore. So we called a staff meeting and told our team. Most people were surprised but supportive. A few were skeptical about partners dating, worried it would affect the business. One older architect made an uncomfortable joke before James shut him down with a look. For the record, James said to the room, Daniel and I have been best friends for 17 years. We built this firm together. Our relationship, romantic or otherwise, doesn't change our commitment to this company or our professionalism. If anyone has a problem with that, you can talk to HR. After the meeting, our head designer, Patricia, cornered me in the break room. I just want to say, she said, I think it's beautiful. I've worked here for 6 years and I've watched you two dance around each other this whole time. I'm happy you finally figured it out. We were that obvious. To everyone but yourselves, apparently, she patted my shoulder. Congratulations, Daniel, you deserve to be happy. Telling my parents about James specifically was harder than the initial coming out. My mother cried, both happy tears that I'd found someone and sad tears about Sarah. I like Sarah, she said. I hoped you two would have children. I know, Mom, I liked her too, but she wasn't right for me, and I might still have children someday. Being with a man doesn't mean I can't be a father. I suppose you're right, she wiped her eyes. I just need time to adjust. This is all very new. My father said less, but I could see him trying. James is a good man, he said eventually. He's been loyal to you for years. I suppose I should have seen this coming. You and me both, Dad. Sarah found out through mutual friends before I could tell her myself. She texted me, "I heard about you and James. I'm happy for you, really, he's a good person and he clearly makes you happy." I called her immediately. "Sarah, I'm sorry, I wanted to tell you myself." "It's okay, honestly, it makes sense. I always knew there was something between you two, even when you were married to me." She paused. "Does he make you happy?" "Yeah, he really does." "Good, that's all I wanted for you." We talked for a while longer and I realized that Sarah and I were going to be okay. Not friends maybe, but not enemies either. We'd shared too much history for that. 3 months into our relationship, James invited me to his family's house for dinner. I'd met his parents before, of course, dozens of times over the years, but this was different. This time I was meeting them as his boyfriend. "My mom is excited," James said as we drove to their house. "She's been planning this dinner for weeks. Fair warning, she's going to ask invasive questions and probably cry at least once." "Your mom loves crying." "Only at emotional occasions. And apparently her son finally dating the man she suspected he's been in love with for years qualifies." "She knew." "Mothers always know." James squeezed my hand. "You'll be fine, they love you already, this just makes it official." His parents' house was warm and welcoming, filled with the smell of home-cooked food and the sound of his mother bustling around the kitchen. "Daniel," Mrs. Chen pulled me into a hug before I'd even made it through the door. "Oh, look at you two, I'm so happy I could burst." "Mom, let him breathe," James said, but he was smiling. Mr. Chen shook my hand with a firm grip and a knowing look. "Took you long enough," he said. "Dad." "What, you've been mopping over this boy for years, I'm just glad you finally told him." Dinner was chaotic and wonderful. James's younger sister, Lisa, interrogated me about my intentions. "If you hurt my brother, I will end you." His mother cried twice, once when James and I held hands across the table, once when I called him babe without thinking. "I prayed for this," Mrs. Chen said, dabbing her eyes. "I prayed that Daniel would figure himself out and that you two would find your way to each other." "You prayed for me to be gay?" I asked, amused. "I prayed for you to be happy and for my son to stop pinning," she smiled. "Same result." After dinner, Mr. Chen pulled me aside while James was helping his mother with dishes. "I want to tell you something," he said. "When James came out, it was hard for us, not because we didn't love him but because we worried. We worried about him being hurt, being discriminated against, having a harder life." "I understand." "But watching him these past few months, seeing him with you, he's happier than I've ever seen him. So whatever you had to go through to get here, whatever it cost you, thank you. Thank you for loving my son." I had to blink back tears. "He makes it easy." "Good, keep doing that." On the drive home, I was quiet, processing the evening. "You okay?" James asked. "Your family is amazing. Your mom already loves us as a couple. Your dad gave me the hurt him and I'll kill you speech." "He did not." "He absolutely did. It was very dad of him." I smiled. "I just keep thinking about how different this is from what I expected my life to look like. A year ago I was married to a woman living in suburbia pretending to be someone I wasn't. Now I'm dating my best friend, my parents are adjusting, and your mom is planning our future wedding." "She is not planning our wedding." "She showed me Pinterest boards, James. There were themes." James laughed but then grew serious. "Does it scare you how different things are?" "Sometimes, but mostly it just feels right. Like I've been trying to force myself into the wrong-shaped box my whole life and I finally found one that fits." "That's a very architect metaphor." "I'm a very architect person." I took his hand. "I love you. I don't think I've said that out loud yet, but I do. I love you." James pulled the car over to the side of the road and kissed me. "I love you too, have for a very long time." "I know, I'm sorry it took me so long to catch up." "You're here now, that's what matters." But not everything was perfect. 3 months into our relationship, I had my first real breakdown. It hit me out of nowhere, or maybe it had been building all along and I'd just been ignoring it. I was at a work event surrounded by colleagues and clients when suddenly I couldn't breathe. The room felt too small, too crowded. Everyone was staring at me or felt like they were, judging me for being gay, for leaving Sarah, for being a fraud who'd pretended to be straight for 35 years. I excused myself and locked myself in a bathroom stall, hyperventilating. My phone buzzed. "James, where'd you go?" Bathroom having a panic attack. He was there in less than a minute, bypassing the men's room sign without hesitation. Daniel, it's me, can I come in the stall? I unlocked the door, and James immediately pulled me into his arms. Breathe with me, he said calmly. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, you've got this. I tried to match his breathing, tried to calm down, but my mind was spiraling. Everyone knows, I gasped. Everyone's judging me, thinking I'm a fraud, thinking I used Sarah, thinking I'm disgusting. No one thinks that, James said firmly. And even if they did, who cares, Daniel, you are not defined by other people's opinions of you. I destroyed my marriage, I hurt Sarah, I wasted 12 years of her life. You loved Sarah to the best of your ability at the time, that's not fraud, that's being human and figuring yourself out. James pulled back to look at me. Daniel, look at me, you are not a bad person for being gay, you are not a fraud for taking time to realize it, you are not disgusting or wrong or any of the other things your anxiety is telling you. How do you know what my anxiety is telling me? Because I've had the same thoughts every queer person has, the self-doubt, the internalized homophobia, the fear that we're somehow broken or wrong. James cupped my face in his hands. But we're not, we're just different, and different is beautiful. I clung to him, letting his certainty ground me. I think I need to go home, I said finally. Okay, I'll tell everyone you weren't feeling well. It's not a lie, anxiety is an illness too. James drove me home and stayed with me, holding me while I cried, talking me through the spiral of self-hatred and doubt. He didn't try to fix it or tell me to snap out of it. He just held space for my feelings, validated them, and reminded me that they would pass. This is going to happen sometimes, James said gently. Coming out late in life, you've got decades of internalized messages to unpack. It's not going to be easy or linear, but Daniel, you're doing the work, you're being honest, that's what matters. What if I can't handle it? What if I'm too broken? You're not broken, you're healing, there's a difference. I called Dr. Rivera the next day and scheduled an emergency session. Tell me what happened, he said. I described the panic attack, the thoughts that had triggered it, the overwhelming sense that I was living a lie even now. That's actually very common, Dr. Rivera said. Many people who come out later in life experience what we call delayed processing. You spent 35 years suppressing your sexuality. Now that you're acknowledging it, all those years of repression are catching up with you. So I'm going to have panic attacks forever. No, but you are going to have to work through the internalized homophobia you've accumulated. The shame, the self-hatred, the sense that you're somehow wrong, that takes time. How much time? That depends on you and how much work you're willing to do, but Daniel, the fact that you're having these feelings means you're processing. That's progress, even when it doesn't feel like it. Over the next few weeks, I had more moments of doubt, more anxiety, more questioning whether I'd made the right choice. But each time, James was there, and slowly, gradually, the good days started to outnumber the bad. 1 year after the night that changed everything, James and I celebrated our official 6-month anniversary as a couple. We went back to that Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date. Can you believe it's been a year? James asked, raising his glass. Since you crawled into bed with me in the dark and changed both our lives. It feels like longer and shorter at the same time, I admitted. Like that person a year ago was someone else entirely. In a way he was, you're not the same person you were then. Neither are you. True, I'm much happier now, James smiled. Though I was also terrified for most of that year that you'd figure yourself out and decide you didn't want me after all. That was never going to happen. I think on some level I've wanted you since we met, I just couldn't let myself see it. We ordered the same meals we'd had on our first date, laughed at the same jokes, and marveled at how much had changed in 6 months. I ran into Sarah last week, I said, at the grocery store. How was that? Surprisingly okay, she seems good. She's dating someone, a guy from her design firm. She looked happy. Are you okay with that? I thought about it. Yeah, I want her to be happy. She deserves someone who's all in, who doesn't have to work to be attracted to her. You were always kind to her, even when you were figuring yourself out. That says a lot about you. I just wish I'd figured it out sooner, before I hurt her. Daniel, you can't change the past, all you can do is be honest going forward. Later that night, lying in James's bed, our bed now really since I'd basically moved in, I thought about the journey of the past year. I'd lost so much. My marriage, the version of myself I'd spent 35 years constructing, the approval of some family members and friends, the comfortable lie I'd been living. But I'd gained so much more: authenticity, self-knowledge, a relationship built on honesty rather than performance, the freedom to be myself without apology. "What are you thinking about?" James asked, running his fingers through my hair. "How grateful I am for you, for that night, even though it was terrifying, for everything that happened after. Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts because they led me here." James kissed me softly. "I love you, Daniel Parker, the real you, not the version you thought you should be." "I love you too," I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. 6 months later, a year and a half since that fateful night, James surprised me with a weekend getaway to a cabin in the mountains. It was October again, the leaves changing colors, the air crisp and perfect. "What's the occasion?" I asked as we drove up the winding mountain road. "Does there need to be an occasion? Can't I just want to spend a romantic weekend with my boyfriend?" "You can, but you're being suspiciously cheerful. And you packed that nice suit, which you only do when something important is happening." James laughed. "You know me too well." The cabin was beautiful, secluded, surrounded by trees with a huge fireplace and a view of the mountains that took my breath away. "This is incredible," I said, stepping onto the deck. "How did you find this place?" "I've been planning this for a while," James admitted. He came to stand beside me, looking out at the view. "Daniel, there's something I want to talk to you about." My heart started racing. "Okay. A year and a half ago, you accidentally got into bed with me and thought I was your wife. It was probably the most awkward, terrifying, confusing moment of both our lives." "Where are you going with this?" James turned to face me, and I saw that he was nervous, a rare sight. But it was also the moment that changed everything. The moment you started being honest with yourself, the moment we started being honest with each other. "James, let me finish." He took my hands. "We've known each other for 18 years, we've been best friends, business partners, and for the past year we've been something more, and I've loved you through all of it, even when I thought I couldn't have you, even when you were married to someone else, even when you were figuring yourself out." Tears were already streaming down my face because I knew what was coming. "I don't have a ring yet," James continued, "because I wanted to pick it out with you, but Daniel, I'm done waiting, I'm done wondering. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, I want to build a home with you, I want to grow old with you, so I'm asking, will you marry me?" I was crying too hard to speak for a moment. When I finally found my voice, it came out choked. "Yes, God, yes, of course I'll marry you." James pulled me into a kiss that felt like coming home. When we finally pulled apart, we were both laughing and crying. "I can't believe you proposed without a ring," I said, wiping my eyes. "I can buy you 10 rings, I just needed you to say yes first." "Yes, 1,000 times yes." We went inside and spent the rest of the day talking about our future, what kind of wedding we wanted, where we wanted to live, whether we wanted children, all the things I'd once planned with Sarah but had felt like going through motions. This felt different, real, right. "I want to adopt," I said. "If you're open to it, I know we'd have to figure out the logistics, but I'd like to be a father someday." "I'd like that too," James said. "A couple years down the line after we're married and settled, but yes, I want to build a family with you." That night, lying under the stars on the cabin's deck, wrapped in blankets with James beside me, I felt a peace I'd never experienced before. "Thank you," I said quietly. "For what?" "For waiting for me, for loving me even when I couldn't love myself, for being patient while I figured out who I was." "Daniel, I would have waited forever, I'm just glad I didn't have to." Planning a wedding as two men in their 30s was both easier and harder than I expected. Easier because we both knew what we wanted, something small, intimate, meaningful. Harder because we had to navigate family expectations and societal judgments. My mother struggled with it, not the fact that I was marrying a man, she'd come to terms with my sexuality, but the very public declaration of it. "It's just so visible," she said when I called to tell her about the engagement. "Everyone will know." Everyone already knows, Mom, I came out over a year ago. But a wedding makes it official, permanent. That's kind of the point of a wedding. She sighed, I know, I'm sorry, I'm trying, it's just different from what I imagined for you. I know it is, but Mom, I'm happy. Really, genuinely happy for the first time in my life. Isn't that what you want for me? Of course it is, her voice softened. I do want you to be happy, Daniel, and if James makes you happy, then I'm happy for you. I just need time to adjust my expectations. Take all the time you need, just promise me you'll be at the wedding. Of course I'll be at the wedding, I'm your mother, I wouldn't miss it for the world. Yeah. My father was more straightforward. When is it? I'll be there, and I'll walk you down the aisle if you want, or walk with you, or whatever you're doing, just tell me what you need. Thanks, Dad, that means a lot. James is a good man, I've always liked him, I'm glad you two figured things out. Sarah sent us an engagement gift, a beautiful set of wine glasses with a note, congratulations to you both, I'm genuinely happy for you, love, Sarah. That was kind of her, James said when we opened it. She's a good person, she deserved better than what I gave her. You gave her the best you could at the time, that's all any of us can do. We decided on a small ceremony at a local botanical garden, just close friends and family. James's sister insisted on being the wedding planner, and within weeks she had everything organized. You're getting married in June, Lisa informed us. The garden is perfect that time of year, you'll have roses everywhere, it'll be beautiful and romantic, and if either of you argues with me, I will hurt you. We're not arguing, I said quickly. Good, now suits or tuxedos. The wedding preparations became a joy rather than a stress. Every decision we made together felt like another brick in the foundation of our life. Every detail was something we both wanted, not something we felt obligated to do. One evening, about 2 months before the wedding, we were looking at invitation designs when James said, I still can't believe this is real sometimes. What do you mean? I spent 17 years loving you from a distance, watching you build a life with someone else, accepting that I'd never have this, and now here we are, planning our wedding, building our life together, it feels like a dream. I took his hand, it's not a dream, it's real, we're real. I know, I just don't want to take it for granted, I don't want to forget how lucky we are. We won't, we fought too hard to get here. James's bachelor party was, predictably, chaos. Lisa organized it against our protests, insisting that we needed one last night of freedom before getting married. We live together, I pointed out. We run a business together, we're together basically 24/7, what freedom are we losing? Just let me have this, Lisa said. I've been planning James's wedding in my head since he came out, let me have my moment. So we found ourselves at a gay bar downtown, surrounded by friends, celebrating with too much alcohol and bad karaoke. Marcus, the man I'd met during my first visit to a gay bar, was there, along with several other friends I'd made in the queer community over the past year and a half. I have to say, Marcus said, raising his beer, when I met Daniel a year ago, he looked like a terrified deer in headlights. Now look at him getting married, completely comfortable in his own skin, it's beautiful to see. Here's to growth, someone shouted and everyone drank. James pulled me onto the dance floor and we danced terribly to 90s pop music, laughing and completely unself-conscious. A year and a half ago, I couldn't have imagined doing this, dancing with a man in public, celebrating my queerness, being unashamedly myself. Now it felt as natural as breathing. I love you, I shouted over the music. What? James shouted back. I love you. I can't hear you. I pulled him close and kissed him right there on the dance floor, surrounded by friends and strangers and the life I'd built from the ashes of the one I'd left behind. The morning of the wedding, I woke up in my old apartment. James and I had decided to spend the night apart for tradition's sake, even though Lisa had rolled her eyes at us. My phone was full of messages. My mother, I'm so proud of you, see you at the garden, love you. My father, ready to get married, I've got the rings. Lisa, if you're late to your own wedding, I will kill both of you. I took my time getting ready, putting on the charcoal gray suit we'd chosen, fixing my hair, trying to calm my nerves. I wasn't nervous about marrying James, I'd never been more sure of anything in my life. But I was nervous about standing in front of everyone I knew and declaring my love for a man after spending 35 years hiding that truth. There was a knock at the door. I opened it to find my father standing there in his suit holding a small box. "Dad, I thought I was meeting you at the garden. I wanted to talk to you first, can I come in?" We sat on the couch and my father handed me the box. Inside were cufflinks, simple, elegant, engraved with my initials and today's date. "Dad, these are beautiful. I wanted to give you something. A father of the bride gives his daughter jewelry, right? I figured the father of the groom should do the same." I felt tears prick at my eyes. "Thank you." "Daniel," my father said, his voice serious. "I want to tell you something. When you first told me you were gay, I didn't know what to say. I was confused, disappointed if I'm being honest. Not because you're gay, but because I realized I didn't know you as well as I thought I did." "Dad." "Let me finish. Over this past year and a half, I've watched you transform. I've watched you become more yourself, more confident, more happy. And I've realized that the person you're becoming is who you were always meant to be. I'm sorry it took me this long to see it." I was fully crying now. "You don't have to apologize." "Yes, I do. I should have made you feel safe enough to be yourself from the beginning. But I'm here now. And I'm proud of you, not just for coming out but for having the courage to rebuild your entire life when you realized the one you had wasn't right. Thank you, Dad, that means everything." He pulled me into a hug, something he rarely did, and held me while I cried on his shoulder. "Now," he said when we pulled apart, "let's go get you married." The botanical garden was perfect. Roses bloomed everywhere, their scent filling the air. White chairs were set up in neat rows facing an arch covered in flowers. Our closest friends and family filled the seats, about 50 people total. I stood at the altar with the officiant, my heart pounding, waiting for James to appear. And then I saw him. He walked down the aisle with his parents on either side, and he was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. His suit was navy blue, perfectly tailored, and his face was radiant with joy. Our eyes met and I felt the same thing I'd felt that night in the dark: recognition, rightness, home. When he reached the altar, his mother kissed his cheek, his father shook his hand, and then James stepped up beside me and took my hands. "Hi," he whispered. "Hi," I whispered back. The ceremony was simple and perfect. We'd written our own vows, and when it was my turn to speak, I looked into James's eyes and said, "James, 18 years ago I met you and felt something I couldn't name. Something I spent years running from because it terrified me. I built a life around that fear, constructed an identity that felt safe but empty. And then one night in the dark, I accidentally found my way to you, and that mistake was the best thing that ever happened to me. You've been patient with me while I figured out who I was. You've loved me at my worst and celebrated me at my best. You've seen me, really seen me when I couldn't even see myself. You've been my best friend, my partner, my home. I can't promise that I won't still have moments of doubt or fear. I can't promise that unlearning 35 years of hiding will be easy, but I can promise that I will show up every day. I will be honest. I will be present. I will love you with everything I am, everything I'm becoming. You waited 17 years for me to catch up. I promise to spend the rest of our lives making that wait worth it." By the time I finished, both of us were crying, the audience was crying, even the officiant looked misty-eyed. James took a deep breath and said, "Daniel, I fell in love with you the moment we met. You were this serious, focused architecture student who was trying so hard to have everything figured out. And I saw beneath that, saw the person you were hiding, the truth you couldn't yet face. I loved both versions of you, but I'm so grateful to finally be with the real you. That night when you got into bed with me, I was terrified, not because of what happened, but because I knew it would change everything. And it did. It forced you to confront questions you'd been avoiding. It started you on a journey that was painful and beautiful and necessary. I don't regret that night. I don't regret any of it because it brought us here. You once apologized for taking so long to figure yourself out. But Daniel, you were always worth the wait, and I would wait another 17 years if it meant getting to be here with you now. I promise to be patient when you struggle, to celebrate every victory. No matter how small, to remind you who you are when you forget, to love you unconditionally exactly as you are. You are my best friend, my partner, the love of my life, and I cannot wait to spend forever with you." The officiant pronounced us married and we kissed as husbands for the first time. The audience erupted in applause and cheers, and I felt a joy so pure it was almost painful. The reception was held in the garden's event space with round tables, string lights, and more flowers than seemed possible. James and I made the rounds, greeting guests, accepting congratulations, feeling overwhelmed by the love in the room. My mother hugged me tightly. "You look happy," she said, "truly happy." "I am, Mom." "Good, that's all I ever wanted for you," she smiled through tears. "James is lucky to have you, but you're lucky to have him too." "I know." During dinner, Lisa insisted on giving a toast that was equal parts embarrassing and heartfelt. "I've known Daniel for almost as long as James has," she said, "and I've watched these two idiots dance around each other for years." James would mope every time Daniel brought Sarah to family dinners. Daniel would find excuses to talk to James even when it was clearly just because he wanted to be near him. It was painful to watch, honestly. But then something shifted. Daniel got brave. He stopped hiding from himself and started being honest about who he was, and suddenly these two idiots who'd been in love for nearly 2 decades finally figured it out. So here's to Daniel for having the courage to be himself, and here's to James for being patient enough to wait, and here's to both of you for building something real and honest and beautiful. May you have a lifetime of happiness together. We raised our glasses and I felt overwhelmed by gratitude for James, for Lisa, for everyone who'd supported us on this journey. Later during our first dance, James whispered, "Are you happy?" "Happier than I've ever been in my entire life." "Good, because I plan on keeping you this happy for the next 60 years. "Only 60. "Fine, 70, but after that I'm retiring from making you happy. You're on your own." I laughed and held him closer, swaying to the music, surrounded by the people we loved, living the life I'd been too afraid to imagine. We spent 2 weeks in Italy for our honeymoon. James's idea. "You've spent your whole career studying Italian architecture," he said. "It's time you actually saw it in person." We wandered through Rome, Florence, Venice, and smaller towns in between. We ate pasta and drank wine and took far too many photos. We made love in beautiful hotel rooms and talked late into the night about our future. One evening in Florence, we were walking along the Arno River, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Do you ever think about that night?" James asked, "the one that started all this?" "All the time." "Do you regret it?" I stopped walking and turned to face him. "I regret that it took me 35 years to figure myself out. I regret the pain I caused Sarah. I regret the time we lost, you and me. But do I regret that night specifically? No, because it woke me up. It forced me to face the truth I'd been running from my entire life." "I'm glad it happened," James said. "Even though it was awkward and terrifying, I'm glad because it brought us here." "Me too." We continued walking hand in hand, two men building a life together in a world that hadn't always been kind to people like us. But we were here, we were together, and we were happy. That was enough. 1 year into our marriage, James and I sat in a social worker's office, holding hands and trying not to be too nervous. "So," the social worker said, looking over our application, "you're interested in adopting?" "Yes," I said, "we've been talking about it for a while. We're ready to start a family." "Tell me about your relationship. How long have you been together?" James and I looked at each other and smiled. "That's complicated," James said. "Technically, we've been together romantically for almost 3 years, but we've been in each other's lives for nearly 2 decades. We were best friends first," I explained, "for a very long time, and then circumstances changed and we became more." "And you're sure you're ready for the challenges of adoption? Especially if you adopt a child from the foster system, there may be trauma, behavioral issues, special needs." "We understand that," I said. "And we're prepared. We have stable careers, a strong support system, and most importantly, we have each other. We want to give a child the kind of home where they can be themselves, where they're loved unconditionally." The social worker smiled. "That's exactly what every child deserves." The process was long and sometimes frustrating. Home visits, background checks, interviews, classes on trauma-informed parenting, but 8 months later we got the call. "We have a child we think might be a good match," our social worker said. "His name is Tyler. He's 6 years old. He's been in foster care for 2 years after his parents lost custody due to neglect. He's a sweet kid but has some trust issues and struggles with attachment. James and I looked at each other. We'd love to meet him. Tyler was small for 6 with big brown eyes and a wariness that broke my heart. He sat in the social worker's office clutching a stuffed dinosaur looking at us like we might disappear at any moment. "Hi Tyler," I said gently, kneeling down to his level. "I'm Daniel and this is James. We've been hopping to meet you." "Are you going to be my dads?" Tyler asked, his voice so quiet we could barely hear it. "We'd like to be," James said, sitting on the floor next to me, "if that's okay with you." I had a dad before. He wasn't very nice. My heart clenched. "We're going to do our best to be the kind of dads you deserve. The kind who are always nice, who keep you safe, who love you no matter what." "What if you change your minds?" Tyler asked, and the fear in his voice was devastating. "We won't," James promised. "Once you're our son forever, no take-backs." Tyler studied us for a long moment, then asked, "Do you have dinosaurs at your house?" "Not yet," I said, "but we can get some. What kind do you like?" "T-Rex, he's the best." "T-Rex is definitely the best," James agreed seriously, "though I'm partial to velociraptors myself." Tyler's face broke into a small smile, the first we'd seen from him. "They're okay too." Over the next few months, we had regular visits with Tyler. We took him to the zoo, to parks, to our house where we'd set up a bedroom just for him. Slowly, gradually, he started to trust us, started to believe that we weren't going anywhere. The day the adoption was finalized, Tyler wore a suit that matched ours, and we all stood in front of a judge who officially made us a family. "How does it feel to have two dads?" the judge asked Tyler kindly. Tyler thought about it seriously, then said, "Good, they let me have 3 dinosaurs in my bed at night instead of just one." Everyone in the courtroom laughed and I felt tears streaming down my face. This was my family, this was my life, and it was more beautiful than anything I could have imagined. I sat on our back porch watching James and Tyler play soccer in the yard. Tyler, now 9, was growing tall and confident, his laughter filling the air. He'd been with us for almost 3 years, and the traumatized 6-year-old who'd clutched a stuffed dinosaur was slowly becoming a happy, secure child. "Dad," Tyler shouted, "did you see that goal?" "I saw it," I called back. "That was amazing." James jogged over to the porch, sweaty and grinning. "He's getting really good. He has a good coach." "Damn right he does." James sat next to me and took my hand. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything. That night 5 years ago, how terrified I was, how much has changed." "Do you ever miss the old life, the security, the normalcy?" I looked out at Tyler, who was now practicing his dribbling skills with intense concentration, then at James, the man who'd waited 17 years for me to find myself. "No," I said honestly, "that life was safe, but it was also a lie. This life is complicated and sometimes hard, but it's real, it's mine, it's ours." "Ours," James echoed, kissing my temple. I like the sound of that. Sarah had gotten married last year to a man who adored her. She'd sent us a Christmas card with a photo of her and her husband looking genuinely happy. I was glad she'd found someone who could give her what I couldn't. My parents visited regularly now. My mother especially bonded with Tyler, spoiling him with dinosaur toys and home-baked cookies. My father had fully embraced his role as grandfather, teaching Tyler about architecture and taking him to construction sites. The firm was thriving. James and I had just won a major contract to design a new community center, and we were in the process of hiring more staff to handle the increased workload. Life wasn't perfect. Tyler still had hard days when his past trauma surfaced. I still had moments of doubt and anxiety about my identity. James and I still argued about whose turn it was to do dishes and whether we needed another rescue dog. James said yes, I said we already had 2. But it was real, honest, authentic. "Papa," Tyler ran up to the porch. We'd settled on him calling James Dad and me Papa to avoid confusion. "Can we get ice cream?" "Did you finish your homework?" I asked. "Yes, I did my math and my reading. Can we please get ice cream?" James and I looked at each other. "Ice cream run?" he asked. "Ice cream run," I agreed. The 3 of us piled into the car, Tyler chattering about his day at school, James making terrible puns, me laughing at both of them. This was my family. This was my life. And it had started with one confused moment in the dark that had turned out to be exactly what I needed. 5 years ago, I thought I knew exactly who I was. I had a wife, a house in the suburbs, a successful career, and a carefully constructed identity that fit all the boxes society told me to check. And then, in one moment of darkness and confusion, everything changed. I've learned that sometimes the worst mistakes lead to the best discoveries, that sometimes you have to lose everything to find out who you really are, that authenticity is more valuable than security and truth is more important than comfort. I spent 35 years pretending to be someone I wasn't, convincing myself that the life I'd built was the life I wanted. It took climbing into the wrong bed on a dark October night to realize I'd been sleeping through my own life. Now I'm awake, fully, completely awake. I have a husband who sees me, really sees me, and loves all of me. I have a son who teaches me every day what unconditional love looks like. I have a life built on honesty instead of performance, on authenticity instead of expectation. Is it perfect? No. Are there still hard days? Absolutely. Do I sometimes miss the simplicity of my old life? Occasionally. But I wouldn't trade this messy, complicated, beautiful reality for anything, because this is my truth. This is who I was always meant to be. That night, when I thought it was my wife in bed beside me, I was wrong about so many things. But in being wrong, I found something right. I found myself. I found my truth. I found my home. And sometimes, the best things in life come from the mistakes we're brave enough to acknowledge. The truth will set you free, but first it will make you miserable. James A. Garfield. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. It takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. E. E. Cummings *. There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. Maya Angelou.